Okay, welcome to TADSummit Preview. This time we're going to be chatting with Chad Hart, who is now the head of strategic products at Voxbone. Now, Voxbone are one of the sponsors of TADSummit, so thanks, Chad, for making TADSummit possible.
Yeah, I'm a happy past contributor to TADSummit, TADHack.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've been a friend of us for a long time now. So let's just get straight down to the questions. We'll make this short and sweet. So Voxbone is well known as a wholesale DID provider to many of the developer-focused CPaaS providers, communication platform as a service. Now, for the wider audience, just could you provide a quick intro to Voxbone?
Well, yeah, as you said, we're historically known as a wholesale, DID provider. We provide phone numbers and SIP trunking services, really to everyone. I mean, Voxbone has close to 900 customers. It's insane that especially coming on board to see how many customers they have. Well, all the big CPaaSs, a lot of enterprises direct increasingly are finding out they can get a pretty good deal on trunking services. Especially a lot of customers come to Voxbone when they need international coverage, right? So Voxbone, I think we're close to 60 countries. We have provided phone numbers in now. We have infrastructure in most of those countries or places. We're a regulated carrier everywhere we go, right? So that's one reason a lot of customers come to Voxbone. And beyond just the basic trunking services, SIP trunking, we're starting to offer more services on top of that. Like, so if you want to have emergency services like E911 or E1112, that's kind of a add-on service that Voxbone offers. Yeah, we also offer mobile numbers. Along with mobile, we get some SMS. So I mean, there's some other things around the core trunking business.
Yeah.
And then there's the new stuff I'm working on too, right? So
exactly. We'll hold off on that for a little bit, but that's a very good point you raise. Is in this business, this distinction between wholesale and retail is disappearing. It's just a spectrum of customers, and it's almost volume based. And the other thing that you highlight very well is it's not just some of the sort of basic nuts and bolts services. Increasingly, you're adding on value-added services around just number provision and SIP trunking. So it's very interesting to see these shifts we're seeing. So congrats on joining Voxbone. Could you provide a little bit of background to your new role?
So my title is head of strategic products services. So but what does that mean? So Voxbone started up a program they call the Workshop. It's basically an innovation group to work on new products and services. I'm focused on mostly IP communication services, so I don't get into deep PSTN type stuff. And you can probably tell from anyone looks up my past talks, I'm not a big fan on traditional telecom anyway. So it's good. I don't get to worry. But so I'm working on a lot of new areas, including kind of communications APIs. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. I mean, they're everywhere. So, but helping enable more CPaaS providers, areas like that. Working on also like cloud-based services too. So and WebRTC obviously. WebRTC.
Yep. So it's very broad. It's across all IP-related communications.
And we're a very agile team. Cuts across multiple areas, but if a good customer opportunity comes along with, hey, we actually need something like this, and it seems a good fit for Voxbone, we'll go out and build it and turn that into a service.
That's interesting. That's really cool. Now, putting your other hat on for a moment, your WebRTC hacks, who have been a partner for TADSummit since the beginning. What are some of the new things that you're seeing with WebRTC?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of caught between two worlds with on the WebRTC side of things. I mean, on one hand, like WebRTC has been around, it's had this 5-year anniversary, and I can't think I can't argue that it's been enormously successful as a technology, right? It's Facebook Messenger is using it with, I think they're approaching 1 billion users, right? It's on every Android device out there. So I don't know if there's any other telecom VoIP stack or VoIP technology that's had such a rapid adoption and use, right? Certainly a lot more than Volte. Actually, I was going to look up the latest Volte numbers to see where they are, but in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
But that's mostly on kind of the web side of things. So then you go back to the more traditional telephony community, and there's still a lot of people struggling with WebRTC and trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of excuses out there. Microsoft, I mean, we could spend a lot of time on this topic, but Microsoft's come around.
Yeah.
Microsoft's actually doing a lot. They're starting to get out there more to advertise all the things that they're doing. But yeah, Microsoft is pretty strong in the WebRTC camp and has a lot of activities going on there. I don't think you can blame Microsoft too heavily for holding things back there. Apple is a pain in the butt. They have stuff in progress. Who knows when they're gonna push it through and actually will end up being on your iPhone, natively or in Safari. But at least it's in progress, right? And obviously all the other vendors, all the browser vendors, it's fairly firmly entrenched inside Google and in Firefox. Standards are nearing completion, like the most basic, grab your camera, microphone, get user media standards done. The other peer connection one, close to being done. The major stuff's done. They're just working on the hard stuff. I'd say the harder stuff, the dealing with media interaction sort of things, which another topic area that I've been fond of in the past. That part's hard. That's the part that's hard. But for a developer, you really don't have much excuse to hold back anymore.
Yep.
So overall, I think WebRTC is doing great. Just not. It needs more help inside the telephony community for them to help figure out how to adapt it to this new web world that everyone's already in, right?
Exactly. And I think also, it's an open source project, so the code is everywhere, as you pointed out, across browsers, across Android devices, and also in a lot of apps and services that we use that just take the open source project and use it because they've got their own reasons and justifications, but they're sitting on this basically massive code base that solved, as you say, so many hard problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you're starting from scratch, you're gonna like build something new. You're gonna use WebRTC stack. Like, it's ridiculous. I think the harder part is, especially for the existing telephony community. All right, you already have a stack. Do you drop it and use the WebRTC one, or do you try to adapt your thing to WebRTC and try to keep up, right? And I mean, I think most people probably, if they were smart, they'd just drop it and probably use it. There's certainly some exceptions to that, but it's not always easy to keep up with it.
Exactly.
But I think some of the reason why you see the newer companies like Facebook out there, Snapchat, whatever, that had been so successful with it, because they just leverage the open source community versus trying to keep up with it.
Exactly. And again, it's one of these where it's always black and white thinking. If you have an existing stack, why not use both? At a very simple level, if you're connected to your network, use that. If you're not connected to your network, and let's face it, my phone most of the time is not connected. It actually has a Wi-Fi connection to a home network, a business network, or whatever. Then use the other stack. So you can live in this interim, and then once you look at the stats and you look at the functionality and you look at the performance, you can then realize, oh, maybe it's worthwhile moving to one stack.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be one stack for. I mean, you can blend them too, right?
Exactly.
On like Wire, they've basically taken some pieces of the stack, the ones that work really well, and the parts where they think they're smarter and can build it better, they use that. So and that's an option too.
Exactly, and I use Wire regularly in Aftermit. It's sweet. It works well, and I would say even though they have all that smartness underneath, to be honest with you, it's more a design decision for me why I use Wire. But I think that's very good perspective.
Well, the whole design, I mean, that's honestly, that's one of the bigger areas. I mean, that people, when you deal with the web and a lot of user interaction, it's inherently a lot more design focused, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're not back in 1995 with like, Yahoo links, right? Anymore, but a lot of the telecom interface, most of the time, like where people come from, I mean, you're standing on a phone on your desk that has, a dial pad on it, and that's how you've interfaced with communications, and that's how, that's breaking that mentality, I think, is part of what's held back, again, a lot of traditional telephony.
No, that's right, absolutely.
It's the exciting part is people are starting to figure that out, and interesting things are starting to happen as a result.
Exactly, that's it, because it's getting embedded in so many other app services and business processes. So that shift's happening. It's slower than, of course, all us insiders would like, but hey, it's there, and it'll be, you know, by 2020, it'll be, well, of course it's there. What's the issue? You know, it's just it happens without you really noticing it. That being that defining, oh my God, the world's changed moment. So moving on, how's Voxbone getting involved in WebRTC?
Well, Voxbone actually has been involved with WebRTC, you know, long before I started, you know, working with them and working for them. Now for 2.5 years, they've had a WebRTC API that lets anyone call any one of Voxbone's DIDs off the web, right? So if you're a Voxbone, it's just basically another way of calling a Voxbone phone number, right, from the web page. So they've had that going on. One of the projects initial projects I started working on with is helping to evolve that. And we talked a little bit about a lot of the traditional telephony community, like having a hard time with design and the web and all that. So we're doing a lot of focus to like making click to call work and really easy and making it easier to integrate on the website, right? And these web infrastructures, they can get quite complex. I mean, the communication interface part of it should be relatively simple, right? You shouldn't have to be worried about both, like how do I build this, you know, nice website and interface, and then how I also adapt all that to, you know, for doing basic, you know, click to call at the end of the day, you know, connecting to somebody. So we've done a lot of work on that and continue there. We're, I'd say, just starting to ramp things up. A lot of what I'm working on is starting to ramp things up. And Voxbone, our traffic really in the last couple of months has really started to skyrocket, you know, 30–50% month-over-month growth with like much bigger volume. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully it keeps going. We're also adding, it's a very different use case, but SIP to WebRTC. Also, which is helpful for, you know, Voxbone has a lot of contact center type customers, or even any kind of enterprise UC where you just want to have some sort of ability to receive a call in addition to making one. So those are the main areas of WebRTC for now. And certainly I have plans to do a lot more. But
but I think on the SIP to WebRTC, I see that coming up time and time again in both call center, contact center, and enterprise use cases. So it's one of those that sort of, you look on, and I think people don't appreciate, especially here in North America, that we're in the midst of a wholesale shift from good old PSDN to SIP trunking. So, and for a whole variety of reasons. Now, it's a slow, steady pace. It's not something that's happening in a couple of years. It's a decade-long transition. But that is driving then exactly the sort of use cases you mentioned in SIP to WebRTC.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have good SIP infrastructure, right? And it's adaptable and flexible, and it's tied into CRM and all the user information, right? So it's usually a lot of times the PSDN side of things that like slows things down, or it gets expensive or breaks. So I really like the SIP WebRTC piece because, or WebRTC to SIP, because it gets rid of the PSDN part, right? It brings with it all the advantages that come along with that, like, you know.
I mean, the challenge, of course, is a lot of enterprise.
And all the contextual information across, like, it's just like just getting to that point is kind of a key threshold in my mind to a much better world.
It just takes time because a lot of enterprises and even call centers do a dual SIP PSDN trunking approach, simply because they got the fingers burnt earlier, and with SIP, and especially when you get whole host of new functionality, and then you try to get it working across your SIP trunks, especially you have international SIP trunking infrastructure. There's all these like niggles that have sort of
I mean, it's going through all that again with WebRTC now too, right? So for a lot of them, they just like got over that hurdle with SIP. Now it's like, oh, that stuff's old. Like now you should all your incoming calls should be over WebRTC, right? Most of your users are finding out your phone number by going to your web page. Like, why don't you just let them call right there?
Exactly.
They're already logged in. So yeah, it's going to take time. I mean, by nature, it's a conservative community because there's a lot at stake if they screw it up. So they kind of have to be, but we're getting there.
Exactly. So is Voxbone a CPaaS?
That's an interesting question. I mean, in some ways, yes. I mean, Voxbone really from the early days has offered an API, but Voxbone is a CPaaS to a lot of other CPaaSs at the same time. So, and a lot of the things I'm working on will continue that trend. I mean, in fact, I get asked a lot of times, are we going to compete with some of the big CPaaS players? I mean, most of whom are our customers, and that's not really our goal. I mean, I see it more, Voxbone, I'd like to convert all our 900 customers into CPaaSs, right? And a CPaaS, it's just APIs, right? And APIs are just, it's like a basic technology of how things work, that everyone is, hopefully almost everyone's using already, right? So communications is supposed to be another set of that. So yeah, I guess we're a CPaaS, but everyone's a CPaaS. What does that really mean?
Exactly.
I prefer to think of Voxbone more as a CPaaS enabler, for our customers. And a lot of the, like, we're working on like a conferencing offload API and recording offload API. Those sort of things are meant to help our customers who either may have those capabilities, but they're not available via an API, or maybe they're just starting and they don't really care about having those, but they'd like to have some, just to make it easy.
Exactly,
for them.
because I mean, like the offload, like the recording. If you're already providing the SIP trunk, it's such an easy thing, a value-added service to provide around that SIP trunk.
And
so it's a natural extension of your existing products.
And that's, I mean, we can leverage a lot of the same infrastructure that Voxbone has, and it's network already. That's already close to the gateways to improve quality. So it's kind of a natural, I'd say, pretty easy add-on for us to do.
Cool.
We're not looking to be a conferencing provider or a recording provider. I mean, that's a different business, right? We're an enabler already, so we're gonna enable more things.
Cool. No, that's great positioning. So, what other services are Voxbone looking at the moment?
I touched on some of them before. One of the more interesting ones that we're working on. So, Voxbone's had an internal initiative to virtualize its infrastructure. So, I don't want to use the term NFV because I've done a lot of work on that. It's I'd say similar, but everyone's
You're not using
right?
Mano. Let's put it like this: you're virtualizing, but you're not using Mano.
we're not. Yeah, I can't say we're following an NFV framework, nor are we for what we need to do. Do we have to? But I wholeheartedly believe, like, moving to more virtualized infrastructure. Voxbone's had a lot of requests over time since we help people expand internationally in a lot of cases, right? We give them phone numbers so they can serve new markets. But if they want to put their servers in a market, what does somebody do, right? You have to either go find some data center if you need bare metal, or you go to Amazon and try to make your stuff work on Amazon, and hopefully you don't have latency quality issues, right? So we like to provide a third option, right, where you can just host that in Voxbone, right? So if your traffic's already going through us, well, you could put your servers like close to our right close to our gateway SBC points, get lower quality. Make it easy for you, and then if you want to reuse some of our optimized instances of Asterisk or Kamaleo or FreeSwitch or some of the other infrastructure elements we use, we're going to make that available for people to use too.
That's interesting. So you can solve some of the latency issues, plus you can have sort of instances set up and optimized for particular applications.
Yeah, and just again, somebody who's skilled, they can go on Amazon and set all this up and use it. But they can't really control the latency and quality that Amazon gives you. If we can make it just as easy and just quality just that much better, and more flexibility, and by the way, we're VoIP first network, we're monitoring all this stuff already for VoIP specific metrics. So so we're looking to expand a lot of the internal capabilities that Voxbone has and give customers more of that.
Interesting. So I guess just to wrap up, coming up in November, we've got your plenary session presentation. I was just wondering whether you could provide some additional hints, because you provided already, I think, a lot of things people will want to listen to. Any other hints about what you're going to talk about in November in Lisbon?
To be honest, I haven't really given a whole lot of thought, and I probably should have, because this was a question that was posted on the website. I am very interested. I mean, this concept of everything's APIs, and like, what does CPaaS really mean? Like, I would like to talk about kind of the evolution of where all this is going, and what to make of it.
Because I think that's going to come up as a core theme within TADSummit. We have the closing keynote from the CEO of Vonage, Alan and Tony, his latest acquisition from Nexmo. So that, I think, will be. And they'll be taking a slightly different perspective to the approach that you're going to be taking. So I think it's going to be really interesting across these different presentations, looking at how each of the different parties sees CPaaS evolving. I think this is a question that we're asking, but also customers are asking and developers are asking, because they see now multiple different providers with subtly different offers, and they're trying to work out, how do I compare, what makes sense. Some of it's easy, it's a volume base, but it depending, as an enterprise, it's getting harder and harder to draw that distinction.
Yeah, well, I'd like to work that out, and I'll probably work it out, in making the presentation in my head at least, or I'll attempt to. But yeah, it is one of the more interesting aspects of Voxbone. It's great to have insights into multiple kind of areas of the value chain, since they really do cut across multiple pieces. So I'd like to try to figure that out. At least I should have the access to the data and the customers to ask to figure that out. So that's what I'm hoping to do. That's
going to be an excellent presentation. Again, thanks so much for taking the time, Chad, and look forward to catching up face-to-face in November in Lisbon.
Yeah, anytime.